I don't know. I don't know. What if the most honest thing you could say right now is, I don't know? Not as a defeat, not as a failure, not as something to fix or hide, but as the most real thing, most alive place you could be standing. Because here's what I've been thinking about. The universe itself, at its deepest level, does not operate on certainty. And maybe neither should we. Welcome to You're Amazing, your space to pause, to calm down, reconnect to your roots, awaken your spirit and see what truly matters. This podcast is called You're Amazing for a reason. You are naturally creative, resourceful and whole. Nothing's missing and you're not broken. Today, I want to do something a little different. I want to borrow a concept from quantum physics. Now, I'm not a physicist. I have no scientific background whatsoever, so let me tell you up front, this is my explanation, based on real ideas but told through my own lens. How I understand it, what it activated in me, and what I think it has to do with the way we live. Here's how I understand quantum physics, in the simplest way I can put it. Quantum physics is the science of the very, very small. The level of atoms, of electrons, of the tiniest particles that make up everything around us and everything inside us. And what scientists discovered at that level completely broke the rules we thought we knew. Because at that scale, things don't behave the way we expected. A particle doesn't have one fixed position. It exists in multiple possible states at the same time, until the moment you actually look at it. Until that moment, it is open, unresolved, alive with possibility. And there is one principle in particular that stopped me when I first came across it. It's called the uncertainty principle. And it says, the more precisely you try to pin something down, the more something else slips away. You cannot hold everything at once. Certainty in one direction costs openness in another. That is the science, or at least that is how I understand it. And when I heard that, something in me went very quiet and very curious, both at the same time. Hi, I'm Jorma, a coactive coach building my own practice with more than 20 years in corporate. And today, we are exploring what this idea from physics can teach us about how we live, how we grow, and how we relate to the unknown. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube, hit follow. It helps more people to find this weekly pause. Thank you so much for being here. Let's pause and look at that together. I think most of us are trained from very early on to treat uncertainty as a problem. Something to solve, something to eliminate, something to get through as fast as possible, so we can arrive at the safe ground of knowing. And I get it. Certainty feels safe. It feels like control. It feels like ground under your feet. But here is what hit me about the uncertainty principle. At the deepest level of physical reality, uncertainty is not a bug. It is not a flaw in the design. It is not something that better science will eventually fix. It is the nature of the thing itself. The particle is not uncertain because we don't have enough instruments. It is uncertain because that is how reality works at that scale. And the moment you try to force full certainty, the moment you try to lock everything down, something else becomes unavailable. That is the principle, and that's the science, and that is my understanding of it. And when I heard that, I thought of a client I once worked with. The client came to me at a threshold. There was a big decision ahead, a career move, and for months they had been circling around it. Spreadsheets, pros and cons lists, conversations with friends, more opinions, and more thinking. And when I ask, what are you hoping more information will give you? They said, I think once I know enough, I'll be able to decide. But as they listened more deeply to themselves, something became clear. This was not only a knowledge problem, it was an uncertainty problem. And no spreadsheet could remove the human reality of choosing without guarantee. The shift came when they stopped trying to eliminate uncertainty and started getting curious about what it was pointing towards. What mattered? What value was asking to be honored? What truth was already present underneath the need to know? Within 2 weeks, they made the decision. Not because they finally had certainty, but because they found enough self-trust to move without it. And that is what the uncertainty principle activated in me. How much of our suffering comes from demanding certainty where none exists, from needing to know the outcome before we take the step, from needing to understand the full picture before we speak the truth, from needing to feel ready before we begin. What if uncertainty is not a sign that something is wrong? What if it is an invitation to get curious? What if it's the place where something real, something alive actually begins? And this touches something very personal for me. Early in my career, I became a certified Agile coach. And one of the core ideas behind agility is exactly this. In complex situations where you cannot predict the outcome in advance, you don't pretend to have the full answer. You test, you experiment, you iterate. You stay responsive to what actually happens, rather than defending a plan that no longer fits reality. Agility was literally built for complexity. And complexity and uncertainty? I think they are cousins. They live in the same neighborhood. And yet, even knowing that, I spent years in corporate environments where the pressure to perform certainty was and still is enormous. You don't say, "I don't know," in a meeting. You don't say, "I'm figuring this out," when someone expects you to be the expert. And the costs of that is enormous. Because when we are not allowed to be uncertain, when we perform certainty instead of living honestly, we stop being present. We start managing impressions instead of actually meeting the moment. I remember a time in my own life when I was at a real crossroads. A decision about direction, professionally and personally. And I kept waiting to feel certain before I moved, trying to calculate the right answer, trying to reduce the risk, trying to know. And the certainty never came first. It came after I moved, after I took the step into the unknown. That experience changed something in me, because I started to understand uncertainty is not a sign that something is wrong. It is often a sign that something real is happening, that I'm at the edge of something new, not stuck in the old. And the shift that made the difference? Curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why don't I know yet?" I started asking, "I wonder what I'm about to discover." That one move from anxiety to curiosity changed everything. So if I take the uncertainty principle and bring it into how I think about inner life, it means 3 things to me. First, stop treating uncertainty as failure. Not knowing is not a sign that you are lost. It is often a sign that you are honest. The pressure to always have the answer closes us down. It makes us smaller than we are. What if I don't know yet was not a weakness, but an opening? Second, get curious instead of getting anxious. This is the move. The moment something in you goes quiet in front of the unknown, that is not the moment to panic. That is the moment to ask, what is here that I haven't seen yet? Curiosity is not naive. It is brave. It keeps you open when something in you wants to close. And third, presence is more powerful than prediction. Some things can only be known when they happen, not before. This is true in Agile, and this is true in coaching. This is true in life. You cannot predict the breakthrough. You can only be present enough to catch it when it comes. It is not about giving up on direction. It is about learning to walk into uncertainty with curiosity instead of fear. Okay, let's do this pause together. Bring one area of your life to mind. A place where you are waiting for certainty before you move. And take one slow breath. And ask yourself, what am I actually afraid will happen if I don't have the answer right now? And then ask, what is the step I already know, even without the full picture? And finally, what would it feel like to get curious here instead of anxious? And take another breath. And now, what becomes possible if I allow myself not to know and move anyway? Just notice what comes. No pressure, no judgment. And quietly say to yourself, I don't need to know everything to take the next step. Uncertainty is where something real begins. And take one last breath. And that's the pause. And here's your question for the week. Where in my life am I waiting for certainty when what I really need is curiosity? Or maybe even more simply, what becomes possible if I stop fighting the unknown and start getting interested in it? And one more thing before I go. I want to give a shout out to Jeffrey and his podcast Uncertain Pathfinders. His whole show is built around one idea: invite uncertainty and unlock possibility. If this topic resonates with you, go and check it out. And I'm also very much looking forward to having Jeffrey on Your Amazing soon. If this pause helped you, follow or subscribe. And if someone came to mind while listening, maybe send this episode to them. I'll see you in the next pause. Because sometimes the real shift is not in finding the answer faster. It's in learning to be fully alive inside the question. I'm Jorma, and you're amazing. Take care of yourself. Bye.